All right, let's jump right in. Whenever the topic of free will in the Quran comes up, there's this one particular verse that almost always gets mentioned. It seems to lay out a really clear, powerful statement about human choice. But what if a closer look at the language completely flips our understanding of what that choice even is?
So here it is, from Surah Al-Kahf. So whoever wills, let him grant security, and whoever wills, let him reject. I mean, at first glance, that seems pretty cut and dry, right? It sounds like a very straightforward declaration of free will. A clear choice is put on the table for all of us. You can accept the truth, or you can reject it. Simple as that.
So yeah, the common take is that this is a simple choice between acceptance and rejection. But is it really that simple? Because here's the thing, the second half of this very same verse has a huge clue, kind of like a twist ending, that suggests this choice is about something else entirely.
Okay, let's get into it. To really unlock what's going on here, we've got to look at the original Arabic. And for this, we're going to lean on the analysis of Khaled al-Said Hassan. It turns out the entire key is hiding in plain sight, in one single, powerful word.
And that word, the one at the very heart of the first choice, is the verb yu'minu. Seriously, our entire understanding of this verse completely hinges on what this one word actually means.
Now, almost every translation you'll see renders this as to have faith or to believe, but here's the beautiful thing about Arabic, words have roots, right? A core meaning that everything else grows from. So what happens when we trace this word back to its linguistic source?
And here it is, the big reveal. The word iman doesn't actually come from a root that means to think something or to hold a conviction. No, it comes from the root iman, which means security, safety, peace. And that, well, that changes everything. Iman suddenly isn't just a state of mind, it's an action. It is the act of granting security.
So with that in mind, let's redefine our terms here. The action yu'minu isn't an internal thought, it's the external physical action of granting security. And that means a mu'min isn't just someone who thinks a certain way, they're someone who actively grants security to the people around them.
Okay, so that's the first choice, to actively grant security. So, what does that make the second choice? Let's look at the other side of this equation now, because this is where it really starts to build.
You see, the verse sets up this perfect contrast. On one side, you have فَلْيَحْيُمِن, the choice to grant security, and on the other, فَلْيَكْفُرْ, the choice to reject doing that. So the choice isn't about some abstract idea in your head. It's about a very real, tangible social action. Are you going to be a source of security for others, or are you going to reject that role?
All right, so that's the choice laid out for us. But what about the consequence? The warning at the end of the verse, because with this new understanding, that warning gets a lot more specific and a lot more interesting. The real question becomes, who is that punishment actually for?
Let's look at the text one more time. The verse says, "Indeed, we have prepared for the wrongdoers a fire." Notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say the fire is for those who reject. It says it's for the zalimin, the wrongdoers. And trust me, that one specific word choice, it's everything.
But wait a second. You're probably thinking, if the choice is between granting security and rejecting, wouldn't the punishment logically be for the rejectors? You'd think so, right? But this is where the verse makes a really fascinating and very deliberate distinction.
And this is what's so wild. The verse could have said the warning was for the kafirin, the rejectors. That would have been the easy, expected wording. But it specifically doesn't say that. Instead, it pivots to a totally different group, the zalimin, the wrongdoers. And that's not a mistake. That's the entire point.
So what does zalimin mean? Well, the root word is zom, and it means injustice, wrongdoing, or oppression. So the punishment isn't tied to a label. It's tied directly to the act of committing injustice.
And that right there shifts the entire focus of this verse. It moves the conversation away from labels and puts it squarely on our actions. It's not about what you call yourself. It's about what you do.
So what this means is that the warning isn't just for one specific group of people. It means that anyone, from any background with any label, who commits an act of zulm, an act of injustice, falls under this warning.
Okay, let's make this super practical. Picture someone who is a mu'min. They are a grantor of security in their community. People feel safe around them. But then, that same person commits an injustice. Let's say they cheat their sister out of her inheritance. In that moment, by that action, they become a zalim, a wrongdoer. And the warning in this verse applies directly to them.
So look at what this boils down to.
It doesn't matter what your label is, whether you're a grantor of security or a rejecter. The warning kicks in for either one the moment they commit an act of injustice. The single bottom line factor is the action, not the label.
So this whole rereading of the verse, based on the linguistic analysis from Khalid As-Sayyid Hassan, brings us to a really powerful conclusion. The ultimate measure isn't about which box you check or which group you belong to. It's about being held accountable for our actions.
And that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about, doesn't it? If the real measure, the ultimate divine criterion, is our behavior, whether we grant security and act with justice, or whether we commit injustice, how does that change how we should live, how we interact with each other, how we build our communities? What does that mean for you?